You choose to open your life story with Walter. The opening chapter is Walter and season 2 of Breaking Bad, and what many people will remember. I don't want to give too much away for anybody who hasn't seen it, but the very, very, very dark and tragic moment where somebody dies, a young woman dies, and you watch it happen, and you let it happen. Describe what that was like for you as an actor and as a man, because of what you actually saw there.
As a father.
Yeah. When an actor prepares, I like to write down all the potentially apparent emotions that you might feel on any given situation. It could go this way. It could actually veer off and go really radically that way. So I just write a bunch of them down and think about that. And then it's planted in my brain, and then I forget about it. Because you don't want to walk in going, okay, now I'm going to show my grief, and now my disinterest, and now here comes my shock. Then you're truly patterning yourself, and that's when actors get into trouble and are indicating emotion as opposed to actually feeling it. So I write those things down as the pre-homework, and then I go in and do it and let the real emotion be there or not. You don't want to force it. One of the things I wrote down as far as this situation where Jesse's girlfriend, Jane, got him hooked on heroin, and I was just disgusted by it. And I wrote down, as she starts choking on her own vomit and possibly die, Walt is there and could stop it. And it's his act of omission that allows her to die. So there is a culpability to it. Even though he didn't kill her, he could have prevented her dying. One of the things that I wrote down was reasons to let her live and reasons to let her die. And one of the things to say about reasons to let her live, among 4 or 5 others, were she's someone's daughter. You know, she's young enough to be my daughter. I'm old enough to be her father. And then, but on the other side, she'll kill Jesse with this introduction of heroin and who knows what else. She's also going to expose my enterprise. And so then you put it aside, you go into the scene, and I was in the scene, and Kristen Ritter, a really beautiful actor who was giving it her all off camera. This setup was on me, and I'm going through this range of feelings, and all of a sudden, her facial features just washed away into being like a neutral face with no characteristics. And then what emerged after that was the face of my own daughter, Taylor, and still as that character, and she was choking to death on her own vomit. And that just caught me by such shock. I didn't plan that, although I did mention it that this girl could be my daughter, and I'm sure that's where that notion just popped into my head, and I had this hallucination of seeing my real daughter dying in front of me, which is, the parent's nightmare. And it caught me by surprise. It was on camera. They used it. And afterward, I wept, and Anna Gunn, who played my wife, came over and hugged me, and other people hugged me. And it's one of those things that actors need to be available to and to risk in order to find out where the depth of any one emotion can go.
At the risk of sounding like a GCSE Sigmund Freud, you wouldn't know the GCSE term, but essentially a 15-year-old Sigmund Freud, though. Acting, is it part of being an actor is trying to divert away from having to confront your own emotions, therefore, because you're telling stories, but they're other people's stories. Did it scare you that you suddenly became so connected in that way to what is your job and your life and the lines blurred in between them?
I suppose there's no one written rule of why actors act. It is empowering. Some people, I would imagine, do it so that they don't have to feel those depths in their own personal life. I use it as as a cathartic experience to be able to purge my own real feelings and put them to good use, for lack of a better term. But I have an avenue to where I can channel those feelings. And that's what an actor has to do. They have to have the courage to be able to show the negative characteristics as well as the positive ones. And
that is so draining, isn't it?
It is draining. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 6 years of Breaking Bad back to back.
Yeah.
Every day, 13, 14-hour days.
And he was depressed, right? Walter White. I mean, that's something that you come up with in the book, that you say, well, actually, this guy's depressed.
And then, he goes through the metamorphosis. But whether he's depressed at the end, I don't know, Bryan.
No.
What you think about that. But you personally, how hard was it for you to shrug Walter off at the end of every week, 4, 5, 6 years in?
Well, I had a methodology of letting Walt go every night. And it was a simple thing. It was a physical touchstone, really. And I would go into hair and makeup trailer, and they would prepare, when I was about to wrap, some nice, hot, moist towels.
Oh, they're great.
And I would put a makeup remover on my face, and I would wrap one towel around my bald head like a turban, and then I would wrap another. I would wrap another one around my face as if I was to get a professional shave, and I would just sit there in the chair and allow the heat and moisture just to pull out the toxicity of the day, emotionally, physically, the grime, the dirt, and just pull it out and get it off of me. I'd wipe myself clean, put on some lotion. I'd take off Walter White's clothes and leave them at the studio because I didn't want to take that guy home. He was carcinogenic, even himself.
Yeah.
So, that helped. Just doing that routine every day helped a lot.
Can I ask you about your attitude towards fame, success, and money? It was quite interesting reading about being in this financially stable situation as a child, and then not, and then back again, and then not, and then seeing what it was like to have no money whatsoever. What is your attitude towards it now that you have more than you would ever need?
Well, I certainly didn't commit to being an actor for the money.
No, quite.
But a lot of people do. A lot of people come in and I can tell when I teach give a seminar or something at a college or a high school, a lot of kids will want to know, how much money do I make? What kind of cars do I drive? And who did I date when I was single? And and to those kids, I say, that's cute.
You sure they're not working for TMZ and they've just managed to get in the class?
But it certainly wasn't anything that I was interested in. When I committed to being an actor when I was 22 years old, I was all in. I didn't have a backup plan. And if that meant that I was to share a flat with 3 other actors and to my age now or whatever, that's what I was willing to do. And so in order to advance and develop and get better at your craft, you just keep working and hope that at some point luck plays a game and brings you to a point where you have some good fortune. And I have had more than my fair share of good fortune. So from a kid who was very poor, we were foreclosed on by the bank on our house. We didn't have any money, really, at all. In fact, when my brother and I went back to live with our mother after the year with our grandparents, she found a house that she leased the entire house. It's a large house. There were 6 bedrooms.
One bath.
I wondered why, and I found out why when we moved back in. 4 of the 6 bedrooms were rented to single men, bachelor men, and in their own little cubicles, and that's how she offset the cost of the house. And so there were a lot of strangers around all the time, and so we were still struggling. At this point now, I'm financially secure. I never have to work again another day in my life. I respect money. I'm glad I have it. I've been poor and I've been wealthy, and wealthy is much better.
Yeah, right.
It is.
Yeah. Right.
But having said that, For instance, with this book, I honestly can't tell you how much money I'm making on the book.
Well, that's because you keep buying it for other people and leaving it out at airports. I mean, you're losing money on this,
I'm
Bryan.
losing money. I don't know what I make. I don't. It's not important to me. I know it's important to my agents and my lawyers. So they're incentivized to do well in the negotiations. So I encourage them to do well. And I don't want to be flippant about it. I don't want to say, oh, money's not important. Of course it's important. But my focus is on my work. If I do my work really well, I just have faith that the amount of money I'm supposed to have in my life will follow. And that should ebb and flow as well. So I'm just not focused on making money.
You've played some extraordinary real-life characters. The Academy Award nomination came for the Hollywood screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, but you've also played Lyndon B. Johnson as well in a Broadway show that was then made into a TV miniseries.
8 Emmy nominations?
Yeah, I think it's something along those lines, was it?
Something like that.
Something pretty extraordinary. Yes, if you don't know.
I don't know. I don't remember.
But I heard you say that there is one man that you would really love to play in a movie. I've got to say, I was gobsmacked. I'm sure it's not the only person that you really want to play, but in terms of historical figures, where we will look back and go, really, that happened? Who is it?
There's a person who's running for president of the United States. Is huge. It would be a huge, huge thing to play this man. Let me tell you something that I can tell you. I love women. I don't, in all seriousness, Donald Trump is probably the most tragic Shakespearean character in American history, which is short by comparison. But he's an absurd person. He's a ridiculously idiotic person.
With the potential to have his finger hovering above a nuclear bomb.
But you've got another but, though, because I know that you see the interesting side of Donald Trump as well. The fact that he touches these triggers in people. He's a smart man. His candor. Are you sort of morbidly fascinated?
I'm absolutely fascinated by him. I'm fascinated that this man could rise to the level of American politics that we have never seen before. But he is an anomaly to presidential politics in America. I think he's an anomaly to humankind. He's a supreme narcissist, and he runs because he wants the title. He really wants the title of the American president, arguably one of the most powerful single persons in the world. But what I also believe is that he doesn't really want the job.
He wants it to spite people who have
He wants to give the job to his vice president,
by all accounts. I mean, it seems... But Bryan, do you not think that by being so vehemently against someone like Donald Trump, you buy into his narrative, which is that it's the kind of rich Hollywood, it's kind of liberal elite
classes
that are the ones who want you, whereas he's the real guy. Like, he's the one who speaks to the downtrodden. He's the one who speaks to the ones with no money, with no power.
Which is absurd, because this man has never been poor in his life. He has no concept what it costs for, a liter of milk. He has no clue of the price of anything. He takes things at will because he's Donald Trump. So I think it's absurd that he speaks for the poor and the downtrodden. That being said, he has stimulated interest in the political system in America, and that's something that's good, that people are talking. People are invested in this election, and that's the one good thing that I think he's brought to it. I think he is dangerous, and quite frankly, I don't think he's that smart. I really don't. I think he's very good at a specific thing, and that is branding himself. I think he knows how to sell himself, and that's because of his narcissism, that he cannot allow himself not to be seen as a winner. So right now, what he's doing in on American airwaves is talking about that this is a rigged system, that the only way he could lose is if it's rigged. So he's building in his excuse right now, laying the foundation of that, so that if he loses, he'll just point to that. See, I told you.
Well, can I just talk about rigging for a second here. There seems to be some beef between you and Bill Murray about rigging a baseball game. You want to lay this out here for us,
For
Bryan?
those who can't see, who weren't watching on webcam, Bryan just took a big slug of his tea there.
Yeah, I mean,
big mean slug of his tea.
If you want to call it tea, you can call it tea.
This is Dodgers and Chicago Cubs.
We're talking American baseball. I'm a huge Dodger fan. Bill Murray is an enormous Chicago Cubs fan. And last week, he appeared at the White House in the press corps room, which only proves to show that the fix is in, that he was getting,
This is paranoia.
That's right. Sorry. And so that the crooked Cubs won this series from the Dodgers by cheating, clearly by cheating, and the surrogate Bill Murray made it happen. And so
you got to let it go.
I think it's appalling.
Bryan, you got to let it go. It will eat you up if you don't let it go.
No.